Welcome back to another edition of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Liberta. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a Minnesota sports fan and especially if you're going through the struggle of this Timberwolves season like we are. And give this video a like as well and help us reach other Timberwolves fans who maybe just want to, get some therapy for the 5-game losing streak they're on right now. So yeah, let's get into it a little bit here. Obviously, not a great last 5 games for the Wolves. They've dropped 5 in a row. It started with that Magic game, which was just super rough. Losing to a team that really isn't that good, blowing a huge second half lead. And then obviously you drop 2 in a row to the Clippers, who, the Clippers are still pretty good, but they're not amazing. They don't have Kawhi Leonard. And now you get into just some ugly territory here, blowing the game against Memphis Grizzlies. So, I don't know. Where do you even start with this? What do you think is wrong with the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah, I think really you probably have to say either the lack of size, which leads to poor rebounding, or I would say also the team's really lack of offensive efficiency to this point in the season rather than what we expected. I think this team has way too long stretches where they just go ice cold and they don't get any buckets. And now couldn't have been more evident last night in Memphis when they go like the last 9 minutes of the game making 2 buckets or something and letting the Grizzlies come back in a game they had no business winning. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably where you got to start, and we got to stop blowing these leads. That's a sign of a bad teams when, like we've said with the Vikings, bad teams find ways to lose, and I think that's what we're doing right now. I think we've had plenty of these games like within our grasp, especially this one. This one's just blindingly obvious, but we still lost, and that's pretty painful against a team that you could end up competing with to try and squeak into the playoffs or those playing games or something like that. So I think that's a huge one to drop, especially on the road. So
yeah. Yeah, it's just frustrating because you look at the team and like on paper, you're like, okay, this team's got talent. They've got Karl Anthony Towns, who is one of the most offensively talented centers in the NBA. Anthony Edwards, who's a rising star in the NBA. We all think he's going to be an extremely good player. D'Angelo Russell, there's varied opinions about him, but no one can argue that he's a good shooter, especially when he's hot. And he's kind of an underrated passer as well, I'd say. He can when he's locked in, he can find some nice passes, get people set up. Malik Beasley, obviously he's off to a slow start, but last year he was a 40% 3-point shooter, just a nice catch and shoot weapon that you have. You got Pat Bev now, like you got some weapons on this team, and it's just like it's not coming together. And especially when you get off to that hot start, you'd think as the season progresses, the offense will get more of a flow. We'd have more chemistry. The defense obviously is still pretty good, although it kind of broke down against Memphis last night. But just a mess, man. And it kind of makes me wonder. Clearly the season got off to a rough start with having to fire Rosas like the week before training camp started. And now, so you're kind of have an interim GM with Sachin Gupta. You got new owners that are kind of have like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out of the door because Glenn Taylor wants like a 2-year process of them taking over the team. Chris Finch, obviously, he like got hired in the middle of last season from a different organization, just under really weird circumstances. He did a nice job to finish the season, but clearly things are just not off to a great start so far this season. So I feel like there's no steadiness in this organization right now. There's nothing to really fall back on. And honestly, like as good of a player as Cat is, like he's averaging 23.6 points, which, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. He's only averaging 9.7 rebounds, which historically is low for him. He typically gets boards, and last night against the Grizzlies, he did get some rebounds, so that was good to see. You got Ant, who's averaging 23.4, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. Like, those are pretty good numbers. But then the drop-off after that is kind of significant. D'Lo's only averaging 17 points and about 5 assists. Then Beasley's only averaging 10 points, which I would really like to see that up around 15. So, like you said, there's just no offensive punch right now. They're too inefficient, and there's just too many stretches of game where they just go, 5 minutes without getting a bucket, or just super like hero ball isolation type scenarios, whether it's D'Lo or Ant or Cat trying to drive to the lane on someone he shouldn't be trying to drive on, and he throws up this wild shot. Like, I don't think there's really anyone that you can absolve blame from here, because they haven't been getting enough out of the role players as well. So it's kind of a total system failure to this point. I mean, it's still early. They're only 3 games under 500, but they do have a tough schedule coming up here with the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Clippers. And I don't know, man. I don't want to get too late too fast for these guys, but with how good the rest of the West is and the rest of the NBA really in general, I mean, you can't afford to get in too big of a hole here.
Yeah, when you think about it like that, you're right that we can't drop too many games and fall way too far back to the point where it'd be pretty near impossible to come back. And I just want to get to a point where we're still at least in it by the All-Star break. And that's
Yeah,
obviously that's a long ways off right now because that's off in February. So I I don't know. We got a long way to go to get there, but I I think we just gotta play. We don't have any for how do I say this concisely, I guess, is that we we just need more guys to really just play a better flow, I guess, plain and simple. I
yeah,
think this offense is predicated on letting guys do their thing, and they're just not doing it right now. And I know it's there's just too much. Like you said, it's a whole system thing. Like I can think of like Cat, for instance. He's some nights he's just on it, but then some nights he just kind of disappears and they'll take a lot of shots. And I feel like that can be concerning. That's an inconsistency that can happen. And then you got nights where Ant can play a lot of ISO ball, and then he just is ice cold too, and he can't hit any shots. And then we
yeah.
fall in these big deficits, and then it gets hard to come back. And then it's like, well, how come we're stacking losses? Well, that's kind of why when our star players are just kind of inconsistent right now. I guess that's it.
Yeah, and like against Memphis last night, you got D'Lo, which he went off for 30. That was great to see. But
Yeah.
then like it comes down to the end of the game and he's dribbling the air out of the ball, letting the shot clock get down to 10 seconds before we initiate any sort of offense. Um, he has that wild pass to McDaniels. He tried kind of doing it was like a pick and roll, and he just tried doing like a pocket pass to McDaniels and wasn't even close. I mean, it was, and then that went the other way for a layup. And Ant throws a bad pass trying to get D'Lo in like a high post up situation, and it gets turned over, and nobody sprints back. The guy ends up missing the layup, but it doesn't matter because nobody sprinted back. So just super frustrating stuff like that, and that's where guys like Cat and D'Lo I'm starting to wear thin on them because
Are they
I mean,
winners?
yeah, exactly. Like, are they truly committed to winning? Because they're not showing me a whole lot of hustle. They're not showing me a whole lot of heart. They're not showing me a whole lot of grit. Like Anthony Edwards, he's young, and I hope he's not learning any bad habits. But he seems to me to be the one that hustles the most on both ends of the floor on this team. Besides, obviously, like a Josh Okogie or somebody or a Patrick Beverly, but of the main like core players, um, Anthony Edwards shows the most hustle, shows the most heart, shows the most intensity, and that's just something I think we're lacking from our now year 7 veteran players in D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. And if we hadn't been able to get Anthony Edwards with the number 1 pick, I mean, just imagine if this team was just D'Lo and Cat right now. We'd be at least now. It's like, okay, if it doesn't work out this season, you can maybe bring Cat back. Unless if he wants out, then you got to trade him. You would have to trade D'Lo at that point. You can kind of reset, but you still have some players here that you can reset with.
Mhm.
Whereas like if you didn't have Ant, if you didn't have McDaniels, you'd be completely resetting and starting all over again. So I guess what do you think about Cat and D'Lo? Do you really think they're capable of being winning players? Do you think this team needs to fully transition into just letting Ant be the guy? What are your thoughts on that?
I certainly think they have the natural talent to be, but it's just I don't know, do they want it enough, I guess? It doesn't feel like it, but maybe internally they feel differently. But I think these guys obviously just gotta go out there and win by any means necessary, whatever it is. You get in a grinder of a game, just make the clutch baskets at the end. I know it's easier said than done, but that's kind of what one of D'Lo's biggest calling cards is just hitting big shots and big moments. And when you see more of that, and I would say with
Yeah.
Cat, it's just honestly not getting too out of control sometimes. Really, I think he's got to stay within what he does best, and sometimes he can let external factors affect him too much. Like for instance, the officiating. I know that's always been a problem, and I
Hmm.
know that that can always be a distraction for him, and that can take away from him really looking at the aspect of the whole game and the whole team and trying to win. I guess that's in simpler terms, but I am beginning to question it, but again, there's a lot of season left to play, so we got to wait a little bit before we go too hot takey here. I guess I would say, even if it's not really that hot takey, but I I think there's certainly something to be said about questioning if this group really can do it, and if I know as Timberwolves fans like to hear another rebuild is on the horizon, that would just be that'd be frustrating. But
And like for me personally, I wouldn't really care because it'd be like it's a new era. Like we can keep saying this over and over again, but now that there's new ownership involved and there's higher expectations, there's the worry for me that they're going to end up relocating this team at some point, which I don't want to have
that's
happen,
no.
especially when you have a guy like Anthony Edwards who's up and coming.
Hmm.
So, yeah, if we have to get rid of Cat and D'Lo, like Cat's been a great player, but if he can't win, he can't win. It's kind of like Kevin Love, even though Love kind of wanted out at the end anyways. Um, but yeah, if they're thinking about moving the team or whatever, like winning is important now. Like they need to start winning now and start building a culture and start because that all sets in stone, like being able to get an arena and convincing taxpayers to pay for the arena and stuff like that. So
It's a great point. It's
um,
hard to convince taxpayers of that when we keep putting a bad product on the floor, and we've only made playoffs once in the last 17 years. But
yeah, I bet a good chunk of Minnesotans would say, I don't care what the heck you do at the Timberwolves, I'm not paying for a stadium. So
yeah,
and that's just the unfortunate reality of it. But who knows? Maybe they can turn it around. I still believe in Ant heavily, and maybe it can get to the point where he starts carrying this team. I mean, he can hit a new level, even. I don't know, but yeah, I'm starting to question the Cat and D'Lo thing here too. I mean, year 7, like if you're not going to figure it out now, are you ever going to figure it out? Like, Cat could easily go to a different team, like I don't know, the Lakers or something, and be a part of a winning culture because everything would be set up for him there. But I'm not convinced that he can do it here, honestly.
exactly. Well, I totally agree with that. Honestly, word for word, I think that was a great way to really summarize that.
Yeah, so we'll see how it plays out, but obviously a discouraging start so far, and I don't know. Hopefully it can get better. It is a long season, and last year, at this in the second half of the season after the All Star break, they did play pretty well. So it's about not getting in that hole, just being able to stick around the 10th seed. That's really the goal for this year. Just get in the play in, get a little bit of taste of playoffs, and go from there. So if they can just kind of hang around the 10th seed, they should be fine. So
Hmm.
that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I said in the beginning, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a Minnesota sports fan, especially if you're a Timberwolves fan. Give this video a like so it can help reach other Timberwolves fans and Minnesota sports fans as well. Comment below. What are your thoughts? Why are the Timberwolves struggling so much? What would you like to see change? Whether it's personnel or philosophy or scheme or anything. Let us know what you'd like to see changed. And feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram. So thanks for watching.